Hello, Susan Corbett, Custom Machine Quilter. This quilt is about quilting it pretty quickly. So the straight lines in the star were painstaking. It's just a bunch of cross-hatching and radiating lines. That's all there is to it. But I couldn't find a way to make it one continuous line, so that was what took up some time. I used rulers and ditch quilted, and then all the rest of the quilt went really quickly. This was done purposely to hold the price down, to do something delightful and fun in keeping with the mood of the quilt, but not going all out. You know, deciding not to quilt it to death and do all kinds of fancy things does not mean you have to forego custom quilting. I stabilized the quilt as usual. I ditch quilted between the sashing and the blocks and around that star. We decided to treat the outer two borders as one border, so that cut things down. So what I'm doing here is quilting a Carol flower. This is Carol Breyer Fallert's flower that she puts in nearly everything she makes. Famous quilter. I'm sure you've seen her stuff out there. So what she's doing is you quilt a little teardrop and echo it 2 or 3 times or maybe more. And then you make these big old flower petals. They're very much like feathers. I left a little space in between each one. I didn't use up all the space with the petals. There's a little bit of room left over for some echo quilting. And in between the petals, when it comes time to echo quilt them, I put little loops, little curlicues. You know, I can't quite quilt without swirling something, so there's a few swirls in there. Some little tendril-like flourishes. And I've included numerous shots of this flower and background quilting being done to illustrate how each one is just a little bit different, because that's how things happen when you're freehanding. And it shows how, like, all the background couldn't be done in one continuous line, but it kind of looks like it was in the end. So this is where you want to increase your speed quite a bit. And after you've done this flower a few zillion times, then you can do it whether you feel well or not, if you're sleepy. I can pretty much do that flower in my sleep. It's extremely useful. It's really easy to turn that flower into an overall design. You know, you just keep on going and going and you echo, and then you get to a new spot and start all over again. Had we wanted to really take our time with it and do some really ultra custom things, that, you know, there's ample space in there for all kinds of more formal flowers, more realistic. But this flower it very much is in keeping with the mood of the fabric this quilter chose to make her quilt with. It's stylized. It's not too realistic. It's kind of whimsical. So all of that went pretty quickly. I'm using all one color thread over the whole quilt, even that dark border. I auditioned the white thread in there, and it looked like it was going to work out fine, which doesn't usually happen. But since that black is a print, You know, you can see the thread up close, but once you get a few feet away from it, you really can't see it at all. Now there will always be some block where there's a lot more fullness in the fabric. And so one of the things we have to learn when we're first learning how to quilt is how to manage that fullness. And when there is some fullness, it's good to have a design like this one, anything feathery, because the quilting just seems to round up that fullness and work it in. And here, after a while, it's going to look like that extra puffy part of the fabric just wasn't even there. It just disappears without doing anything special. And see, I'm covering ground I've already covered where I have to by traveling along the ditch. All that fullness is gone. And here's a look at the border. The two outer borders, one black and that narrow little print, by treating those as one border, that's a good way to get a quilt quilted a lot faster than you would if you'd done two individual designs. And here there wasn't much point to doing two different designs. You wouldn't really be able to tell unless one was a bunch of straight lines. Then the difference probably would show. So what I'm doing here is just a bunch of really stylized freehand flowers. Parts of flowers, not the whole flower in some cases. And see, the flower throughout the background quilting in the blocks was rounded. Here I added a bunch more with points in them. So I'm just transitioning back and forth. Large, small, whole ones, partial ones, just whatever is going to fit. And then filling in between with some leaves. So that's all that's happening there. This will really help if you know which flowers you're going to quilt in ahead of time. I used to make myself on a scratch sheet of paper like a little design library so I could refer to, and now I pretty much just take off and go for it. You know, I quilt what I feel like is called for in the moment. So it's great to have a design library in the first place. No idea is going to come to you if you don't already have some that you've learned, memorized on paper, online, somewhere. Learn some freehand flowers and all your quilting will go a lot faster. Here's a look at the border from the back. The back of the quilt is mainly white, but in the middle there's a great big flower panel that matches it's from the same fabric line as the prints on the front. But here you can see what I've done. All kinds of little partials and whole flowers and leaves and stuff. This was a lot of fun. All right, and now here's the super quick sashing design. There's not much of it. It's just a really simple little vine. So I'm making a teardrop shaped leaf, which is giving us a harmonious design scheme because it's extremely similar to the flower. And then just some little leafy, just, some growth happening in the vine. And crossing in the middle, I think I quilted the vertical line first, and so here at the horizontal, I'm just, retracing some steps, quilting in and around what I've already done to hop over it and get to the other side. Here is a close-up so you can see a little bit better. What makes this good contrast is that it's going in a different direction and it's smaller and simpler than what's happening in the outer border or in the block background. And the white thread disappears in that fabric. Here's a look at the back panel. You can see the outer border a little bit. And then see all that white thread in the blocks and the sashing? Pretty much you can't really tell in the panel. And this is going to be used as a throw So it's good that the back and the front are both equally beautiful. When there's a thing in the middle, man, that's hard to center sometimes, but this time it looked like I really knew what I was doing. You know, it worked out really well. It doesn't always do that. I find that really tricky, but I lucked out here. And here's the finished product. It's so pretty. And wait till you see what I have coming up for next time. Thanks for watching. I'll see you then.